Welcome, dear listener, to a journey through some of history's most perplexing and mysterious true crime cases. Tonight, let your mind wander into the realm of unsolved puzzles, whispered secrets, and the soft echoes of lives once lived. Before we begin, find a comfortable position. Take a slow, deep breath in and out, allowing your body to relax completely. This session is meant to be both intriguing and soothing. Each story is presented with gentle care designed to quiet your thoughts and ease you towards sleep. Throughout your journey, I'll guide you with your soft-spoken narration, ambient pauses, and periods of reflective silence. Let the cadence of my voice, paired with the ambient background, lull you into a calm state as we explore these strange true crime mysteries. Now let's begin our exploration with our first story, the haunting mystery of the Isdal Woman. It was late November in 1970, in Norway's remote and rugged Isdalen Valley. This area, whose name translates to Ice Valley, lies just outside the city of Bergen. Known for its dramatic cliffs and serene hiking trails, Isdalen is a place of natural beauty, but it also has a darker side. Locals sometimes call it Death Valley due to its history of tragic accidents and suicides. On Sunday, November 29, 1970, the father and his two young daughters were hiking through this quiet valley. The air was crisp and cool, and the ground was damp from recent rains. As they walked along the secluded path near some jagged rocks, they stumbled upon something deeply unsettling, the charred remains of a woman's body. The father quickly shielded his daughters from the gruesome sight and hurried back to Bergen to alert the authorities. When police arrived at the scene later that day, they were met with a disturbing sight. The woman's body was lying on its back between large rocks. Her arms were in what forensic experts call a boxer pose, a position caused by exposure to extreme heat. Her face was so badly burned that it was unrecognizable. Around her body were several strange items: an empty bottle of St. Halvard liquor, two plastic water bottles that smelled strongly of gasoline, rubber boots that appeared partially melted, and traces of burned paper. But perhaps most puzzling was what investigators didn't find. There was no identification on her body or in her belongings. No wallet, no ID card, nothing to indicate who this woman was or why she had been in such an isolated location. The police quickly launched an investigation into her death. Was this an accident, suicide, or something far more sinister? As they began their work, they uncovered a series of clues that only deepened the mystery. As we delve deeper into the mystery of the Isdal Woman, let's explore more of the intricate details surrounding her case. The story of this unidentified woman has captivated investigators and the public alike for over half a century, and there's still so much to uncover. Let's go back to the beginning and examine the scene of her discovery more closely. The Isdalen Valley, where her body was found, is a place of stark beauty and isolation. Surrounded by steep mountains, the valley is often shrouded in mist, giving it an eerie, almost otherworldly atmosphere. It's not hard to imagine why locals sometimes refer to it as Death Valley. On that fateful Sunday in November 1970, the father and his two daughters, who made the grim discovery, were simply out for a family hike. They had no idea that their afternoon would turn into the beginning of one of Norway's most enduring mysteries. The father, whose name has never been released, to protect his privacy, later described the moment of discovery as surreal and terrifying. He said the image of the burned body stayed with him for years afterward. When the police arrived at the scene, they found more than just the woman's body. Scattered around her were several items that would become crucial pieces of evidence in the investigation. Let's examine these items in more detail. The empty bottle of St. Halvard liquor. This particular brand of liquor was popular in Norway at the time. It's a spiced liquor made from herbs and spices with a distinct flavor. The presence of this bottle raised questions. Had the woman been drinking before her death? Was the bottle hers, or had someone else left it there? There was 2 plastic bottles that smelled of gasoline. These bottles were key evidence suggesting that the fire had been deliberately set. The presence of accelerants indicated that this was not a natural occurrence or an accident. There was a partially melted pair of rubber boots. These boots were later identified as being from the brand Sealer, which was sold in Norway and other parts of Europe. The fact that they were partially melted suggested that the woman had been wearing them when the fire started. The traces of burned paper the investigator found had not been completely consumed by the fire. However, they were too damaged to yield any useful information. There was also a woolen sweater. This item of clothing was relatively intact and became an important piece of evidence. It was later determined to be a style popular in Europe at the time. There was a scarf like the sweater. This item was not completely destroyed by the fire and provided investigators with another clue about the woman's clothing preferences. There was a watch. Partially melted wristwatch was found near the body. While the intense heat had damaged it significantly, experts were later able to determine its make and model. And several pieces of jewelry were recovered from the scene, including a ring and earrings. These items were later examined for any identifying marks or unique characteristics that might help identify the woman. The police meticulously documented and photographed the scene before carefully collecting all the evidence. They knew that every detail, no matter how small, could potentially be crucial in solving this mystery. As news of the discovery spread, the local community was gripped by a mixture of fear and fascination. Who was this woman? How had she ended up in such a remote location? And most importantly, what had happened to her? The investigation quickly expanded beyond the immediate crime scene. The police began canvassing the area, interviewing local residents and hikers who might have seen something suspicious in the days leading up to the discovery. They also reached out to hotels and guest houses in Bergen and the surrounding areas, hoping to find someone who might have encountered the woman. It was during this initial phase of the investigation that police made another significant discovery: 2 suitcases left at the Bergen railway station. These suitcases, which were found in the station's lost property office, would prove to be a treasure trove of clues about the mysterious woman's identity and movements. The suitcases contained a variety of women's clothing, all of high quality and fashionable for the time. Interestingly, all labels and tags had been carefully removed from every item. This deliberate act of removing identifying marks immediately raised suspicion amongst the investigators. Multiple wigs of different styles and colors were found. This suggested that the woman may have been in the habit of changing her appearance frequently. Several pairs of non-prescription glasses were discovered like the wigs. These could have been used to alter her appearance. A wide array of makeup and beauty products were found in the suitcases. These included high-end brands from various European countries. Detailed maps of Norway and Western Europe were among the items. Some of these maps had markings on them, possibly indicating places the woman had visited or planned to visit. A significant amount of cash was found, including 500 German marks and 130 Norwegian kroner. The presence of foreign currency suggested that the woman had recently traveled outside of Norway. There was a small notebook containing a series of coded entries that would later become the central focus of the investigation. Among the more unusual items was a silver spoon with the monogram F engraved on it. This piece of silverware stood out as it seemed more personal than the other items. Several empty prescription bottles were found, but like the clothing, any identifying labels had been removed. There was another pair of rubber boots, which matched description of the partially melted boots found at the scene in Isdalen Valley. There was also a book written in German. This book, whose title and author were not disclosed by the police, provided another hint that the woman's possessions were connected to German-speaking countries. There was a comb and hairbrush, which these personal grooming items were examined for hair samples that might provide DNA evidence, and a pack of cigarettes, a partially used pack of popular European brand of cigarettes, was found in one of the suitcases. The discovery of these suitcases was a major breakthrough in the investigation. They provided investigators with a wealth of information about the woman's possessions and possible lifestyle. However, like so many aspects of this case, the suitcases also raised new questions. One of the most intriguing items found in the suitcases was the notebook containing coded entries. These cryptic notes immediately caught the attention of the investigators. The notebook contained a series of seemingly random letters and numbers, written in neat, precise handwriting. Police cryptographers spent countless hours trying to decipher these codes. Eventually, they made a breakthrough. The codes appeared to be a complex system for keeping track of the woman's travels. Each entry seemed to correspond to a date, place, and possibly a contact or event. For example, one deciphered entry read 312 S 22 11 38 0. Investigators believe this could translate to December 3 Stavanger, November 22 arrival 1380 1:30 p.m. This decoding provided investigators with a partial itinerary of the woman's movements. It showed that she had been traveling extensively throughout Norway, and possibly other parts of Europe in the weeks leading up to her death. However, the purpose of these travels remained a mystery. The coded notebook wasn't the only evidence of writing found among the woman's possessions. There were also several pages that appeared to be written in some form of shorthand or cipher. Despite their best efforts, investigators were never able to fully decipher these pages. To this day, their contents remain a mystery. As the investigation progressed, police began to piece together a timeline of the Isdal woman's movements in the days and weeks leading up to her death. They discovered that she had been staying in various hotels across Norway, always using different aliases. October 29, 1970, the woman checks in the Hotel Scandinavie in Bergen using the name Genevieve Lancier. She claims to be from Belgium. On November 1st, 1970, she leaves the Hotel Scandinavie and travels to Stavanger, where she checks into the St. Svithin Hotel using the name Claudia Tilt. November 9, 1970, the woman returns to Bergen and stays at the Hotel Bristol, this time using the name Alexia Zarna Mertes. On November 18, 1970, she checks in the Hotel Rosenkrantz in Bergen using the name Vera Jarl. On November 19 to the 23rd, 1970, the woman stays at the Hotel Hordeheimen in Bergen, registered as Fenella Lork. From November 23rd to 29th, 1970, her movements during this period are unclear. It's believed she may have stayed at other hotels or guest houses, possibly using different aliases. On November 29th, 1970, the woman's body is discovered in the Isdalen Valley. At each hotel, she presented herself as a traveling saleswoman, though no one could ever confirm what she was supposedly selling. Staff at these hotels described her as elegant, well-dressed, and somewhat reserved. She often dined alone in the hotel restaurants, occasionally speaking to other guests but never forming close relationships. One hotel maid, who encountered the woman during her stay at the Hotel Hordenheimen, provided a particularly intriguing account. The maid reported seeing the Isdal Woman in her room with an unidentified man on the evening of November 22nd. According to the maid, the two were sitting and talking and seemed comfortable in each other's presence. When the maid entered to clean the room, they allowed her to do so without leaving, which struck her as unusual. The sighting is significant because it's one of the few times anyone reported seeing the Isdal Woman in the company of another person. The identity of this man remains unknown, and he has never come forward or been identified. As investigators dived deeper into the woman's movements, they uncovered more puzzling details. For instance, they discovered that she had a habit of changing her room frequently during her hotel stays. She would often request a different room shortly after checking in, usually asking for one with a balcony or a good view of the surrounding area. This behavior raised suspicions among the investigators. Was she paranoid about being followed? Or was she perhaps conducting surveillance of her own from these vantage points? Another curious detail emerged from her stay in Stavanger. A local shoe store owner's son remembered selling her a pair of rubber boots. He described her as attractive and well-dressed, but noted that she had a strange, unplaceable accent. Most intriguingly, he mentioned that she had an unusual scent about her, which he likened to garlic. This scent, described by several witnesses who encountered her, became another piece of the puzzle. Some speculated that it might have been related to a specific perfume she wore, while others wonder if it could be connected to her activities or background in some way. The investigation took a more ominous turn when a witness came forward with a startling claim. A local fisherman reported seeing a woman matching the Isdal Woman's description observing military installations near Stavanger. This information was not initially shared with the Bergen police, but was instead reported to a security officer at a nearby Olsnes naval base. Stavanger at the time was home to several important military facilities, including NATO installations. The possibility that the woman might have been involved in espionage added a new layer of complexity to the case. This report prompted the Norwegian intelligence service to launch their own secret investigation into the case. A classified file from December 1970, which was only released decades later, revealed that the woman's movements corresponded with top-secret trials of the Penguin missile, an anti-ship missile being developed by Norway at the time. The file noted that personnel from the Norwegian Defense Research establishments had been staying at various hotels in Stavanger during these missile trials. Could the Isdal Woman have been gathering intelligence on these military activities? As the investigation progressed, more witnesses came forward with sightings of the Isdal Woman. One person claimed to have seen her in a Bergen department store, arguing with a man about a standing mirror they wanted to purchase. The witness believed they were speaking in an Eastern European language, though they couldn't identify which one specifically. These sightings raised even more questions. Why would a woman who only stayed in hotels be interested in purchasing a standing mirror? And who was the man she was arguing with? Despite extensive efforts, investigators were never able to identify this man or confirm the details of this encounter. Another witness, who didn't come forward until 2005, claimed to have seen something truly disturbing. He reported that while hiking in the Isdalen Valley on a Sunday in November 1970, he saw two men in black coats and hats acting suspiciously. He described them as having foreign features and behaving in a manner that suggested they were trying to hide something. This late testimony added fuel to theories that the Isdal Woman might have been murdered, possibly by foreign agents. However, The significant delay in reporting the sighting made it difficult for investigators to corroborate or follow up on this lead. One of the most crucial pieces of evidence in the case was the autopsy report. The medical examination of the Isdal woman's body provided investigators with valuable information, but also raised new questions. The autopsy revealed that the woman was between 30 and 40 years old, with a small round face and long brownish black hair. She was approximately 164 centimeters tall. The medical examiner noted that she appeared to be in good physical condition, with no signs of chronic illness or significant past injuries. However, it was a toxicology report that provided the most startling information. The analysis showed traces of up to 50 sleeping pills in her system. Specifically, the drug detected was phenomal, a barbiturate commonly prescribed for insomnia and anxiety at the time. Interestingly, while the number of pills ingested was high, the amount of the drug in her bloodstream was relatively low. This suggested that she had taken the pills shortly before her death, and not all of them had been fully absorbed into her system. This finding puzzled investigators. If she had intended to take her own life, why hadn't she waited for the full effects of the drugs to take hold? The autopsy also revealed soot in her lungs, indicating that she was still alive and breathing when the fire started. This led to the official cause of death being ruled as a combination of carbon monoxide poisoning and barbiturate intoxication. Another intriguing aspect of the autopsy findings was that examination of the woman's teeth. Her dental work was extensive and distinctive, with 14 fillings and several gold crowns. This was an unusual amount of dental work for someone in her age range, especially in Norway at the time. Professor Isdal Woman, a forensic odontologist involved in the case, was particularly fascinated by the woman's teeth. He noted that the style and quality of the dental work suggested it had been done in Central or Eastern Europe, rather than in Scandinavia or Western Europe. Dr. Bang was so intrigued by the woman's teeth that he made the unusual decision to keep her jaw after the autopsy was completed. He hoped that other experts might recognize the dental work and provide a lead on her identity. His decision would later prove to be crucial when the case was reopened decades later. The autopsy also revealed that the woman had never given birth, a detail investigators hoped might help narrow down her identity. They also noted several small scars on her body, including one on her left thumb, that appeared to be relatively recent. As the investigation continued, police began to explore various theories about who the Isdal woman might have been and what circumstances led to her death. The first theory was the spy theory. Given the woman's mysterious behavior, use of multiple identities, and possible observation of military installations, many investigators believed she could have been a spy. The Cold War was at its height in 1970, and Norway, as a NATO member bordering the Soviet Union, was a hotbed of espionage activity. Her movements and actions seemed to fit the profile of an intelligence operative. The second theory was the criminal connection theory. Some speculated that the woman might have been involved in criminal activities, possibly related to drug trafficking or organized crime. Her frequent travels and use of aliases could be explained by involvement in international criminal networks. The third theory was the escaping past theory. Another theory suggested that the woman might have been running from something or someone in her past. Perhaps she was a victim of abuse or had witnessed a crime and was living under assumed identities to protect herself. The fourth theory was the suicide theory, which was the official conclusion of the Norwegian police when they closed the case in 1971. It suggested that the woman had taken her own life, possibly due to mental health issues or some unknown personal crisis. However, many aspects of the case seem to contradict this theory. And the fifth theory is the murder theory. which has long been one of the most compelling explanations for the Isdal Woman's death. Many investigators and amateur sleuths believe that her death was not an accident or suicide, but rather a carefully orchestrated killing. The evidence supporting this theory lies in several key aspects of the case. First, there is the presence of accelerants, gasoline, in the bottles found near the body. This suggests the fire was deliberately set either by the woman herself or by someone else. The fact that soot was found in her lungs indicates she was still alive when the fire started, raising the possibility that she was incapacitated and unable to escape. Second, there are the mysterious circumstances surrounding her movements in the days leading up to her death. The use of multiple aliases, frequent changes in her appearance, and her apparent paranoia all suggest she might have been trying to evade someone, or perhaps multiple people. Witnesses described her as nervous and cautious, behaviors that align with someone who feels they are being watched or followed. Third, there is the testimony of witnesses who reported seeing suspicious individuals in the Isdalen Valley around the time of her death. One hiker claimed to have seen two men dressed in black coats and hats acting strangely near the location where her body was later found. These men were described as having foreign features and behaving in a way that suggested they were trying to conceal something. Could they have been involved in her death? Another piece of evidence supporting the murder theory is the coded notebook found among her belongings. All investigators were able to partially decode its content and trace some of her movements. They were never able to determine its full meaning. Some believe it may have contained information about meetings or contacts, possibly with individuals who ultimately played a role in her demise. The presence of wigs, non-prescription glasses, and clothing with labels removed also points to deliberate attempts to conceal her identity. If she had been murdered, it's possible that these items were part of a larger effort to keep her true identity hidden, not just by herself but potentially by those who killed her. Finally, there is the question of motive. If she was murdered, why? Was she targeted because of something she knew or something she had done? Was she involved in espionage or criminal activities that put her life at risk? Or could it have been a personal vendetta, something rooted in her past? Despite these compelling pieces of evidence, no definitive proof has ever emerged to confirm that the Isdal woman was murdered. The lack of witnesses or forensic evidence tying another individual to her death has left this theory open to speculation. A Cold War connection? One of the most popular theories about the Isdal woman is that she was involved in espionage during the height of the Cold War. Norway's strategic location as a NATO member bordering Soviet territory made it a hotbed for intelligence operations during this period. Several aspects of the case align with what one might expect from a spy operating under deep cover. Multiple aliases. She has at least 8 different names while traveling through Norway and other parts of Europe. Each alias was carefully constructed, often including details about fictional backgrounds, such as Belgian citizenship or professions like traveling saleswoman. Her movements across Norway and Europe suggested she may have been gathering intelligence or meeting contacts. Her stays at various hotels often coincided with significant events or military activities in those areas. And some people did witness her near naval bases or other sensitive locations, which do match the top-secret trials of Norway's Penguin missile system. The cryptic entries found in her notebook are consistent with how spies might record their activities without leaving incriminating evidence. And a multitude of disguise, such as her wigs, glasses, and frequent changes in appearance, in order to blend in different environments while carrying out assignments. The Norwegian Intelligence Service conducted its own investigation into these claims, but kept much of their findings classified for decades. When some files were finally declassified years later, they revealed intriguing connections between the woman's movements and military activities in Norway. For example, during November 1970, the month leading up to her death, Norwegian military personnel were conducting trials for the Penguin missile system near Stavanger. This cutting-edge anti-ship missile was a closely guarded secret at the time, and any attempt to gather intelligence on its development would have been considered a serious threat. Could the Isdal Woman have been working as an agent for a foreign government? If so, which one? Some speculate she may have been connected to Eastern Bloc countries like Poland or Czechoslovakia due to her dental work and accent. Others believe she could have been working for Western intelligence agencies like MI6 or the CIA, but became compromised during an operation. Unfortunately, without concrete evidence, these theories remain speculative, but they add another layer of intrigue to an already complex case. One of the most fascinating aspects of the Isdal Woman case is the forensic analysis of her teeth. Her dental work was extensive and distinctive, far more elaborate than what would have been typical for someone living in Norway at the time. Professor Bang, a forensic odontologist who examined her teeth during the autopsy, noted several key features. Gold crowns, which were more commonly from Central or Eastern Europe during the mid-20th century. 14 fillings, which is high for her age, but also they were high quality. And it also implies that she had access to high-quality dental care throughout her life. The method used for some of her dental procedures suggested they had been performed by dentists trained outside Scandinavia, possibly in countries like Germany or Poland. In 2016, Norwegian police reopened the case with assistance from journalists at NRK using isotope analysis, a cutting-edge technique. They examined samples from both her teeth and bones to determine where she might have lived throughout her life. The results suggested that she had spent time in southern Germany or France before arriving in Norway, but once again, no definitive answer emerged about who she was or why she died under such circumstances. When police officially closed the case again on February 5th, 1971, they ruled that the woman had likely died by suicide, though many officers involved privately admitted they doubted this conclusion. Her body was laid to rest later the same day in Mollendal Cemetery in Bergen, a quiet resting place surrounded by trees and rolling hills. She was buried in an unmarked grave with Catholic rites, chosen because investigators believed she might have been Catholic based on some of her aliases referencing saints' names. In an unusual decision, authorities chose a zinc coffin for her burial, a material designed to preserve remains for potential exhumation later if new evidence came to light. Even in death, this mysterious woman remained anonymous, leaving behind only questions instead of answers. In recent years, advances in forensic science, combined with renewed public interest, have brought fresh attention to this haunting mystery. Nearly 46 years after the Isdal woman's death, Norwegian police reopened the case. Advances in forensic science, particularly in the fields of DNA analysis and isotope testing, offer new hope of uncovering her identity and origins. The first step was to exhume her body from the zinc coffin, where she had rested for over 4 decades. The use of a zinc coffin had proved prescient, as it had indeed preserved her remains remarkably well. This allowed forensic experts to obtain viable DNA samples from her teeth and bones. The DNA analysis provided some intriguing results. While it didn't immediately identify the woman, it did offer some clues about her genetic background. The test suggested that she likely had European ancestry, with possible connection to areas in Central or Eastern Europe. This aligned with earlier theories based on her dental work and reported accent. However, the most revealing information came from isotope analysis of her teeth and bones. This technique examines the ratios of certain chemical elements in human remains, which can vary depending on where her person has lived throughout their lives. Different regions have distinct isotope signatures based on factors like geology, climate, and diet. The results of the isotope and analysis painted a fascinating picture of the Isdal Woman's life. Her childhood, the isotope in her teeth suggested she spent her early years in an area consistent with parts of Germany or France. There were indications that she may have moved to a different region during her teenage years, possibly further east in Europe. And the analysis showed that she had lived in multiple locations across Europe in the years leading up to her death, corroborating the theory that she was a frequent traveler. Interestingly, the isotope data indicated that she had spent several months in Norway, or a similar Scandinavian country, before her death, longer than investigators had initially believed based on hotel records. While these findings didn't solve the mystery of her identity, they provided valuable insights into her life and movements. They also raised new questions. Why had she moved around so much? Was it related to her work, or was she running from something? With the DNA profile now available, investigators turned to international databases in hopes of finding a match. They submitted the Isdal Woman's genetic information to various European global DNA repositories, including those used for missing persons cases and criminal investigations. Unfortunately, no direct matches were found. This could mean several things. The woman's family members have never submitted their DNA to any of these databases. She may not have any close living relatives, or her family might be from a country or region with limited participation in international DNA databases. Despite the lack of a direct match, the investigation did yield some distant genetic connections. These suggested possible family ties to regions in Eastern Europe, particularly areas that are now part of Poland, the Czech Republic, and Slovakia. However, these connections were too distant to provide any concrete leads on her identity. Now, in a more fun way, when they reopened the case in 2016, this also reopened a lot of theories, which some are more serious than others. The first new theory was the Mossad agent theory, which some amateur sleuths believe that Isdal Woman may have been an agent for Mossad, the Israeli intelligence agency. They point to her apparent expertise in disguise and covert travel, as well as the geopolitical climate of the time. In 1970, Israel was engaged in the war of attrition with Egypt, and some speculate that Norway may have been a site for covert operations or meetings. The second theory, which is the double agent theory, which is building on the espionage angle, some theorizes that the woman may have been a double agent, working for multiple intelligence agencies. This could explain her frequent travel, use of multiple identities, and potentially her untimely death if she was discovered. The third option was the witness protection theory, a less dramatic but still intriguing theory. It suggests that the woman may have been in the witness protection program. Her careful efforts to conceal her identity could have been an attempt to escape from criminal elements she had testified against. The fourth theory was the amnesia victim theory. Some speculate that the woman may have been suffering from amnesia, or dissociative disorder, explaining her use of multiple identities and her seemingly aimless travel. The fifth theory is a time traveler theory. In a more fanciful vein, some internet theorists have suggested that the Isdal Woman was a time traveler whose mission went awry. While not taken seriously by investigators, this theory speaks to the enduring mystery and seemingly inexplicable aspects of the case. These theories, while largely speculative, demonstrate that the enduring fascination with the Isdal Woman's story and a human desire to solve seemingly unsolvable mysteries. The case of the Isdal Woman has had a significant impact on Norwegian culture and has inspired numerous works of art, literature, and media. In 2018, NRK produced a popular podcast series called Death in Isdal Valley, in collaboration with the BBC World Service. The series, which delved deep into the case and in new forensic investigations, brought the mystery to a global audience and sparked renewed interest in solving it. Several books have been written about the case, both in Norwegian and English, ranging from true crime accounts to fictionalized interpretations of the woman's life and death. These works have helped keep the story alive in the public consciousness and have introduced new generations to the mystery. The case has also inspired visual artists, painting and sculptures depicting the Isdal Woman, or scenes from her story, have been exhibited in galleries across Norway. These artistic interpretations often focus on themes of identity, secrecy, and the human desire for answers in the face of the unknown. In Bergen, where much of the mystery unfolded, the Isdal Woman has become something of a local legend. Walking tours of the city often include stops at locations associated with the case, such as the hotels where she stayed and the train station where her suitcases were found. The enduring fascination with the case had also led to discussions about privacy, identity, and the ethics of posthumous investigations. Some argue that the woman's desire for anonymity in life should be respected in death, while others believe that solving the mystery could bring closure to potential family members and contribute to historical understanding. To fully understand the Isdal Woman's case, it's crucial to consider the historical context of Norway in 1970. This was a time of significant geopolitical tension and rapid social change. As a NATO member bordering the Soviet Union, Norway played a strategic role in the Cold War. The country was a potential battleground for East-West tensions, making it a hotbed for espionage activities. Norway experiences rapid economic growth in the late 1960s and early 1970s. Partly due to the discovery of oil in the North Sea, this led to an influx of foreign workers and increased international business activities. Like much of the Western world, Norway was undergoing significant social changes. The women's rights movement was gaining momentum, and traditional social norms were being challenged. And Norway was becoming an increasingly popular tourist destination, particularly for outdoor enthusiasts attracted to its fjord and mountains. This made it easier for individuals to travel through the country without attracting undue attention. And while advanced for its time, communication technology in 1970 was still limited compared to today. International phone calls were expensive and often required operator assistance, and there was no internet or cell phones. This made it much easier for individuals to maintain multiple identities or disappear entirely. These factors created an environment where a person like the Isdal Woman could potentially operate under multiple identities without immediate detection. It also provides context for why her case was so puzzling to investigators at the time, and why certain avenues of investigation that would be standard today were not available then. Despite decades of investigation and the application of modern forensic techniques, many questions about the Isdal Woman remain unanswered. Who was she really? What was her true name and nationality? What was the purpose of her travels across Europe and Norway? Was she involved in espionage, and if so, for which country or organization? Did she die by suicide? Was she murdered? If she was murdered, who was responsible, and what was their motive? What was the significance of the coded notebook, and has its full meaning ever been deciphered? Why has no one ever come forward to identify her, despite the case's publicity? What is the explanation for the various items found with her body and in her suitcase? Were the sightings of suspicious men near the scene of her death related to her demise? What secrets, if any, did she take to her grave? The case of the Isdal Woman continues to fascinate investigators, journalists, and the public alike. Her story has become more than just unsolved crime. It's a symbol of the enduring human desire to uncover the truth and make sense of the mysterious. Efforts to solve the case are ongoing. The Norwegian police periodically review the evidence, and new leads, however tenuous, are still investigated. International cooperation has increased, with law enforcement agencies from multiple countries now involved in trying to match the woman's DNA and identifying her. Advances in genetic genealogy, which have helped solve other cold cases, offer hope that one day the Isdal Woman's true identity might be uncovered. This technique, which involves comparing DNA profiles to large genealogical databases, has the potential to identify distant relatives who might provide clues to her identity. As technology continues to advance and more historical records become digitized, there's always the possibility that a crucial piece of information will come to light, finally solving this decade-old mystery. The story of the Isdal Woman is a testament to the complexity of human identity and the challenges of uncovering the truth in a world where people can reinvent themselves and disappear without trace. It's a mystery that spans decades across international borders and touches on themes of espionage, crime, and personal tragedy. As we've explored this case, we've journeyed through the misty valleys of Norway, delved into the Cold War intrigue, and witnessed the march of forensic science. We've considered theories ranging from the plausible to the fantastic, all in an attempt to understand who this woman was and what led to her untimely death. Perhaps one day, advances in technology, or a stroke of investigative luck, will finally reveal the truth about the Isdal Woman. Until then, she remains one of the 20th century's most enduring mysteries, a nameless figure whose story continues to captivate and perplex us half a century after her death. As you drift off to sleep, let the gentle rain wash away the tension of the day. Allow your mind to wander through the mist-shrouded valleys of this intriguing mystery. Perhaps in your dreams you'll uncover clues that have eluded investigators for decades. Remember, even unsolved mysteries of value. They remind us of the complexity of human life, the limits of our knowledge, and the enduring power of curiosity. The story of the Isdal Woman, with all its unanswered questions, invites us to ponder the nature of identity, the shadows of the past, and the secrets we all carry.